Well, taking to the streets. We've seen it time and time again throughout the Middle East, also in Greece and Spain and London. But it's been a long time since we've seen it in this country. Tens of thousands of people gathering to protest against their government. That is, until this week, until Wisconsin. And the winds of revolution are starting to blow across the country, with momentum gaining in states like Tennessee and Indiana. Alex Jones is a radio host in Austin, Texas. And Alex, I'm wondering, from your standpoint, how big of a deal is this, what we're seeing happen?
Well, it's huge. I mean, right here on your own broadcast, I predicted this many years ago. Most other researchers and folks that look at geopolitical developments, economists, had predicted all of this. The main driver is dollar devaluation. The dollar is the world reserve currency. And as the global economy is flooded with dollars, as the private Federal Reserve hyperinflates the dollar, it's going to drive up commodities. And so in places like Egypt and many other areas, you're going to have people who are making on average $2 a day or less, basically with empty bellies, who are going to start rioting and protesting. And austerity via globalism is also coming to Western Europe. It's coming to places like Ireland. It's coming to Greece, the United States, and now in multiple states across the United States. In Mexico in the last 2 days, we're seeing massive protest, riots. We're seeing people getting very angry. We've seen the governor of Wisconsin threaten preemptively to call out the National Guard. And so now we're learning that this whole Homeland Security apparatus is really to suppress the American people as our taxes go up, but the benefits actually go down as the military has its benefits and health care being taken, because everything is now going to the offshore private central banks who've engineered this situation. That's why the British Ministry of Defense 4 years ago, our own Pentagon last year, predicted global riots coming in 2011, 2012, because they understand that this has been engineered, and the system hopes to use all of this new furor in the streets as a pretext to basically roll in another layer of intensified police state. So this is all highly organized and coordinated. The question is, will the people be victorious against this, or will the offshore robber barons of the New World Order be successful bringing in their vaunted world government?
Alex, I want to touch upon a couple points you make. I mean, I think it's very fair to say that things like hunger and poverty have driven people in Egypt, in Mexico, in other places to the streets. But this is not what we're seeing in Wisconsin. People are not coming out because they're starving. I mean, certainly people are worried about their future. They're worried about their wallets. Talk about some of these differences when you hear this comparison between Egypt and Cairo. And then later we'll talk about sort of the National Guard and everything, too.
Well, we do see basically what's happening in Cairo come to the West, but people aren't starving to death like they are in North Africa and the Middle East. And so they're not killing police, and police aren't killing them. But they are demonstrating, they are walking out, teachers are striking. And so because we do have a higher standard of living, it's not as bad as what we're seeing overseas in the third world and developing world, but it is a manifestation of the same global move. But there are 43 million Americans and growing on food stamps, an all-time record. There are a lot of people that are going hungry. We've had record deaths last year and this year of people freezing to death because city governments and state governments turned off their power because they couldn't afford it. So it's not 1/100th of something like we see in Egypt, but it's still all basically caused by the same thing. And as this dollar devaluation accelerates in the next few years, you will see more and more people going hungry because even though they'll be getting their food stamps, those food stamps won't buy as much anymore. We're seeing tent cities for 4 years expanding here in the United States. So it all goes back to the same root. But yes, you're right. It's not as bad as it is in Egypt.
Well, let's talk about now, I know you brought up the idea of the National Guard coming back to Wisconsin. Coincidence or not, you know, that the governor has called them in to help maintain order. Is it? And some people are even saying, you know, you compare this governor who is just very out of touch with a lot of these workers. I don't know if you agree with that or disagree. Some people making the comparison to Hosni Mubarak, that President Mubarak in Egypt had no idea what any of these people, you know, the common citizens were going through.
He said, let them eat cake.
Let them eat cake. Do you think it's a fair thing to say? I mean, that the governor of a state in the United States of America is that out of touch with his people?
Yes, I think it is a fair comparison, and here's the key to it. This is what the liberals and conservatives aren't saying. We're talking about $1 trillion owed to China, $1 trillion owed to the private Federal Reserve. That's the supposed outstanding debt. Overall, it's $14 trillion. But we have 1.5 quadrillion, even the Washington Post reports that, 1,500 trillion that the banks created in fraudulent paper via derivatives. So most of the tax increases and pensions being cut, that is being blamed on unions and welfare, when if you got rid of all the unions, all the welfare, the Social Security, all of it, it would do nothing to pay off the 1.5 quadrillion that's supposedly owed to the banks. Just like in Ireland, they admit that almost none of that debt is owed by the Irish people. The Irish people are being signed on to the international bank's debt that they've created because the banks are threatening with a financial gun to the world's head that they will fully implode the world economy if we don't give them unlimited trillions that Congress can't even track. So really what's happening in Wisconsin and other states is a red herring. Everything is about, oh, let's cut these teachers' pay. That'll fix the deficit in the economy, when you could fire all the teachers and it would do nothing, nothing to deal with this.
All right, Alex Jones, thanks so much for talking to us. Radio host joining us from Austin, Texas.